Hello, my name is Jennifer Perrow, and I'm talking today about a professional development session I developed called Relaunching STEM Week that brings NASA STEM resources into the classroom using the 5E lesson planning method. The topic of the professional development focused on physics topic, including force and mass. The students would develop a method of cargo distribution around a balloon rocket that simulates a payload getting into orbit. So students are investigating the relationship between force, mass, and motion, and making observations of the balloon rocket as they test and redesign their mass distribution. This allows students to explore and apply the principles of potential and kinetic energy, gravity, and Newton's laws of motions within the student design and testing phases. The topic also informally introduces the engineering design process by having students design and redesign their rocket. The audience are local educators from my district and my friends. The educators who attended included one 6th grade science teacher with 20 years experience, one 8th grade science teacher with 2 years experience, a 7th and 8th grade homeschool educator with 8 years experience, a 5th grade math and science teacher with 24 years experience, and one 12th grade engineering and math teacher with 18 years experience. They all served a variety of different numbers of students, but they were all local students from the area. The target audience of the resource is middle school students and clubs and activities in a home setting. So I feel like my audience represented that target audience well. And my ultimate plan was to have my district incorporate student teams from elementary, middle, and high school to experience a week of STEM activities with connections to required curriculum content and real-world experiences, as we've done in the past, but have given up for more standardized test preparation in recent years. The NASA STEM heavy lifting activity, we focused in this professional development session on applying the 5E method of lesson development to the NASA heavy lifting activity from the NASA STEM Forward to the Moon educator resources, which were developed in celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Apollo missions. For the Engage, we asked students, how does NASA get cargo into space? And demonstrated the basic premises of a rocket launch using balloons on a string. We walked through the basic lesson plan template of the 5E method, and I showed how I applied it to this particular lesson. So the engagement starts off just getting students' attention and showing them the basic method that they'll be using. The explore phase gave students time to test and build and redesign their rockets to see how moving the mass around on the balloon affected the height that the balloon reached, so the rocket reached, right? Because we need to get rockets into orbit with large cargo in order to build the things that we're going to need to reach the moon and Mars in the future. So the explore phase allowed students a little bit of time to make observations and redevelop their thinking based on force and mass. The explain phase, the launch teams present their findings, their general findings from the first phase of testing, and explain their design process that they came up with inside their teams. They also report their observations and the maximum mass they were able to lift, which inspires and motivates teams for the next phase to conduct more testing and redesigning. So let's see. And then from the explain phase, we asked them some basic leading questions on, do they think the volume makes a difference on how much mass they can lift? What about potential and kinetic energy? Newton's laws, how to apply them, and just general questions like that to lead them to rethink their designs. The elaborate phase has students retest and redesign their rockets and develop a formal presentation outlining the steps they took to reach their goals. And then in the final evaluate phase, student teams will test their designs in class, a final launch, to see the results. Each team will observe other launches and determine the ultimate success of the teams in developing launch vehicles that can lift a payload. The student teams will share their formal presentations and provide feedback to each other and develop new ideas for future designs and collaboration using ideas from every team. Other activities in the resource covered many areas of STEM, so the educators that attended were given time to look at the other resources within that resource, NASA resource, and share their ideas of how we could use NASA resources in the future using the 5E method. The feedback also allowed educators to suggest their next topic of interest for future professional development sessions. This resource that I used focused on the heavy lifting activity from the NASA STEM Forward to the Moon educator resources that use elements of force and motion and applying steps of the engineering design process. Students learn about the NASA Artemis missions and the 50th anniversary of the Apollo missions through these activities. Teachers were provided with links to the full educator guide and the 5E lesson templates so that they could apply NASA resources to their future lessons using the 5E method. Overall, I found the process of planning and hosting the STEM professional development session helped me grow as a teacher leader because it allowed me to embrace many challenges while making an impact on other educators and their students. I was surprised that the educators with the most classroom experience knew the least about the 5E method. Most of them hadn't even heard of it before. They did express that they had been using the techniques in their lessons, but not in a planned and structured method like the 5E method outlines. The educator with the least classroom experience knew that their district wanted the 5E method. It was in their lesson plans, but had never had any training on what the 5E method actually was besides hearing the words. The educator with the most experience was actually our homeschool teacher who had been able to have experiences through local organizations and museums by attending STEM events. The colleagues that I work with in my school have expressed interest in ongoing professional development sessions, and I would like to implement those as often as I can to allow us time to collaborate and plan more meaningful classroom experiences for our students. Eventually, I hope that this can lead to relaunching the STEM initiatives within my district and classrooms of my attendees.